During the final few moments of the last lecture, Lecture 12, I said you might want to compare, concerning flying saucers, what Ezekiel says about describing the cherubims in Ezekiel 1 and reputable reports from reputable people who have seen flying saucers. And you get the idea this may be angelic activity. Now, I didn't have the nerve to tell you this during that session, but I thought, you think this is funny perhaps, but I thought I saw a flying saucer many years ago. I was pastoring a church in Mansfield, Ohio, and it was early in the morning, and one of our ladies was going to be operated on. I think those doctors, they set the time of operation so early to get at preachers, but so it was about 5:30 in the morning, and there was a lot of fog, and I didn't have my first cup of coffee, and I noticed this object weaving and bobbing up and down in front of me. It was rectangular in shape, and it had red and green and yellow flashing lights, and what on earth is this? And I got a little closer, and I know you're going to laugh, but I saw it, and there was portholes there, and I got a little closer, and there were tiny little creatures inside. I thought, what on earth? And well, I got a little closer, and I realized it's a school bus, so I went on around it, but that was my only time to see a flying saucer. Well, we're not talking about flying saucers. We're talking about angels, though, and thus far we're looking at the good guys, and then we'll look at the bad guys before this session is over. The activities of the good angels in heaven. Here's what they do. They worship the person of God. They observe the people of God. They inquire into the prophetical plan of God. They rejoice in the works of God, His work in creation and redemption. And they perform the will of God. And they witness and will witness during the tribulation the wrath of God. Now, that's their activities in heaven. What about on earth? Well, we've looked at several now. Their activities regarding the saved. Their activities regarding the unsaved. Now, we want to continue that now. Their activities concerning Israel. Angels fought for Israel in Judges chapter 5. Remember, Barak and Deborah defeated their enemies, and we're told in their song of deliverance, they fought from heaven. The stars in their courses fought against Sisera. That was the Canaanite general. So the stars in their courses, apparently angels had a part in that battle, and they gave the law to Israel. In fact, we're told that at Mount Sinai, God used angels to deliver the law to Moses. And then they will seal the 144,000 Israelites during the Great Tribulation, and they will gather faithful Israel at the end of the tribulation concerning Israel, their ministry. And then concerning the Savior. We've discussed this before, but I'll go through some of it. They worship Him. One of the reasons they were created to worship Jesus. They were made by Him and for Him. They predicted His birth. They announced His birth. They helped protect Him from being killed by Herod. They ministered to Him in the wilderness after He had been brutally assaulted by Satan with no food for 40 days. We read in Matthew 4:11, "Then the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him." And then they also ministered to him in the garden after his, again, ordeal, where he sweat, as it were, great drops of blood. And I think this was a diabolical attempt to kill him in the garden, keeping him from going to the cross. And Luke tells the medical physician, he tells us this. He said, there appeared an angel unto him from heaven, strengthening him. And then they rolled away the tombstone after his resurrection. They announced his resurrection. They predicted his second coming, and they will accompany him at his second coming. They are in right now, and always have been, always will be, in total subjection to him. And at the bottom of the page here, at the end of this section, I have a extended quote from Dr. Louis Sperry Schaeffer's book, Systematic Theology, about angels and about their attitude, their relationship, their views, in regards to the earthly ministry of Jesus. I hope that you will read this. Now, what about the destiny of these saved holy angels? Well, to spend eternity in the New Jerusalem along with the elect. Hebrews 12 tells us about this. So heaven will be a mighty big place. I don't know how many millions of human beings will be there, but I'm telling you, as we understand the number of the angels, for every one human being, redeemed human being in heaven, there may be a quadrillion of the angels. Because remember, we repeated this often, scientists tell us there are as many stars in the heavens as there are grains of sand on all the seashores of the world. And angels are often referred to and connected with stars. But to spend eternity in the New Jerusalem along with the elect. You ever had the opportunity to teach a Bible class? How would you like to be assigned a Bible class of 1 billion intelligent beings? Angels. Oh my, though, they're smarter and swifter and stronger, and they've been around longer. And then what can we possibly teach them? All you have to do is just dust off those notes about the grace of God and give them your testimony concerning how Jesus saved you, because they know nothing about the grace of God. Only a sinner saved from his sin, redeemed by the blood of Jesus, knows anything about grace. So we'll learn a lot of things from these angels, but we will also be able to teach them, but we'll spend eternity in the New Jerusalem with all these angels. And then the second destiny is to learn throughout all eternity, and we've already mentioned this, of God's grace as exhibited by the elect. In fact, Paul says in Ephesians 2 that in the ages to come, we might show the exceeding riches of his grace. And we can sing that song, redeemed, how I love to proclaim it, redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, redeemed through his infinite mercy, his child, and forever I am. Well, let me just put this in here. You can, and when you teach these angels, I like to quote songs, and maybe you can quote this song to angels. And it goes like this when you teach these this class of 1 billion. There is singing up in heaven such as we have never known, where the angels sing the praises of the Lamb upon his throne. Their sweet harps are always tuneful, and their voices loud and clear. Oh, that we might be more like them while we serve the Master here. And the chorus is, holy, holy. It's what the angels sing. And I expect to help them make the courts of heaven ring. But, teacher, when I sing or teach redemption story, what's going to happen? They, all 1 billion of them, they will fold their wings, for angels never knew the joy that my salvation brings. So you bone up on all that grace stuff you possibly can, because God's going to allow you to teach the grace of God to these angels. Now, what about the characteristics of the bad guys, of evil angels? Well, they have a number of names, and we just briefly touched on this. In the Old and New Testament, they are called, these are the Old Testament names, they are called evil spirits, lying spirits, perverse spirits, sexually impure spirits, unclean spirits, and familiar spirits. The familiar spirits there probably are those angels that cause unsaved human beings to dabble in the occult. And then in the New Testament, they are referred to, again, as sometimes in the Old Testament, unclean spirits. Matthew 10, verse 1, Jesus sends out the apostles, and he said, when he had called unto them his 12 apostles, he gave them power against all unclean spirits, to cast them out and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. Unclean spirits, evil spirits. We're told in Luke chapter 8 that certain women which had been healed of evil spirits and infirmities, and Mary called Magdalene, out of whom went 7 devils, evil spirits. They're called foul spirits. Revelation 18, verse 2. Wicked spirits. Luke 11, one of Jesus' parables here. Then goeth he and taketh to him 7 other spirits more wicked than himself. This is a case where a fellow experienced reformation but not regeneration, and he quit drinking and chewing and going with the girls who do, and cleaned up his life a little, but he did it apart from Christ. And then the evil spirit left him and came back and said, wow, this guy's a moral, outstanding, upright citizen. So he brought others back more evil and more wicked than himself. So apparently there is a pecking order as far as some are more wicked than others here. Wicked spirits, deaf and dumb spirits. These are demons and spirits that cause deafness and muteness. Seducing spirits. This has to do with Paul in 1 Timothy 4. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in a latter time some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. Christ-denying spirits, miracle-working spirits. You know, all that glitters is not gold, and sometimes you have false religions, and they claim that they can work miracles, and maybe some of them can. And then disobedient spirits. They're also called the devil's angels, angels which kept not their first estate, and often demons. So these are a number of names for the angels in the Old Testament and then the New Testament. Now, the location of fallen angels. We said that there are two kinds of angels, the good and the bad, the holy angels and the fallen angels, but there are also a twofold classification of fallen angels, the unchained angels and the chained angels. There are unchained fallen angels who have a certain amount of freedom at this present time. Paul says in Ephesians 6, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And so we see, there's no doubt about it, that men like Adolf Hitler and Joe Stalin and Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein, these men were not just evil men, but they were absolutely demon-possessed by these unchained angels. But there's another kind of fallen angel known as a chained angel. And these angels have no freedom at the present time. We read in 2 Peter chapter 2, Peter says, for if God spared not the angels that sin, but cast them, not will, but has already cast them to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness. Now, in fact, in Gospel of Luke chapter 8, when Jesus is talking to the maniac of Gadara, and he asked him, saying, what is thy name? And he said, my name is Legion. I'm the head guy, but there's probably 6,000 others in here with this fella, because many devils were entered into the maniac, and they besought him that he would not command them to go into the deep or the pit or this time or this place of darkness that some group of angels of the fallen ones are already consigned to right now. Now, what is the sin of these bound angels? We know the sin of the original fall when they fell in with Lucifer, joined in with Lucifer when he attempted to pull a revolt against God. But there is another sin involved. Beyond that, the sin of the bound angels. It's already been observed that 1/3 of heaven's angels joined Lucifer in his rebellion against God. These, of course, are the fallen angels in the Bible, and someday they'll all be judged by God and thrown into Gehenna hell. But why have some of their number suffered imprisonment already? And many students, and your old-aged teacher is one of them, believe the answer to this question is found in Genesis chapter 6. Right before the flood. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God took the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all whom they chose, etc. And then it says, and after that the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. Now, much controversy has been surrounded these verses. Who were the sons of God who married the daughters of men? two views. Number one, the sons of God were the believers. They were from the godly line of Seth. Remember, that's the one that took the place after Abel killed Cain, after Cain killed Abel. And these are the Christians, and the daughters of men, these were the unsaved. There's another view that says, oh, no. When you see this expression in the Hebrew, sons of God, B'nai Elohim, in the Old Testament, it is a reference not to human beings at all, but to angels, in this case, fallen angels. And there is a passage, before we talk about the sin that might have been involved here, there's a passage that may give us some insight, and it's found in 1 Peter 3, and Peter says, "For Christ also has suffered for sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but quickened by the Spirit, by which also he went and preached," now notice, "unto the spirits in prison, which sometimes were disobedient, when once the long suffering of God waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was preparing, wherein few, that is, 8 souls, were saved by water." Now, it is thought by some that these spirits, not human spirits at all here, were those sons of God, the fallen angels in Genesis 6. The reason for their iniquity was a satanic attempt to corrupt human flesh and thus prevent the promised incarnation from taking place. But here, Peter describes Christ as telling them their foul plan didn't work. Well, we're not absolutely sure, but we do know, whatever the sin, 2 kinds of angels, holy angels, fallen angels, 2 classifications of fallen angels: unbound, unchained angels, bound, chained, fallen angels. Now, the organization and rank of angels, like the good guys, they seem to have an organization here. There are evil angels who rule over the nations of this world. Iraq may have had, hopefully we've driven him out, an angel. And probably Iran has an angel, and Syria and some of these rogue nations, North Korea, may have special angels assigned to do as much damage there. And then a wicked angel named Legion headed up a large group of fallen spirits that had possessed the maniac of Gadara. And then the bottomless pit is under the control of an angel called Abaddon. And 4 military angels will lead a hellish army, 200 million strong, during the latter part of the tribulation. And 3 angels will organize events which lead to the battle of Armageddon. So they're highly organized. The appearance of fallen angels. Fallen angels, like good angels, are invisible spirit beings. However, on occasion, they do manifest themselves. There are 3 New Testament passages which offer some description of these corrupted creatures. Revelation 9, verses 7 to 10, Revelation 9, verses 13 to 21, and Revelation 16, verse 13. Let me just read the Revelation 9 passage, 7 to 10. "The shapes of these creatures are absolutely hideous. They are like horses prepared for battle. Crowns of gold seem to be upon their heads. Their faces are like men's, their hair like women, their teeth like lions. They have on breastplates as iron. Their tails are like those of a scorpion. The sound of their wings is like that of many chariots rushing toward battle." It almost seems like it's a description of the typical rock singer today. And by the way, though, we talked about the glorious appearance of the good angels, and here's totally different of the bad angels. If an angel's an angel, how come the difference here? Well, I think we can hear 2 human beings, and one is very healthy, and one the same age, perhaps a twin brother, is dying of cancer. And maybe the twin brother doesn't have an opportunity to visit his other brother, and maybe until a number of months have gone by, and then he visits him in the hospital. He doesn't even recognize him from his memories and everything, because the cancer has so disfigured this body of his twin brother. And I think that's exactly what sin has done, not only to human beings, but what it will do and has done to angels. And then the personality of fallen angels. They have names. Now, the angels the glorified angels, the holy angels, have names, and perhaps, and I believe this, at the beginning, when God created all the angels, he named every one of them. As he named the stars, he also named the angels. And some have suggested that perhaps each star carries the same name as the angel that superintends that star. But they have names, and they speak. A number of occasions they speak, and I have this for you here. They possess intelligence. They knew who Jesus is or was. They knew of future damnation. They knew the saved from the unsaved, and they are able to formulate a satanic-centered, systematic theology. They possess intelligence. They experience emotion, not love and beauty and joy, but fear, desire, and cynicism. And they possess great strength, and you can see that in the 4 different illustrations and examples I have for you. And the activities of fallen angels, they do exactly the opposite of what the good angels do. They oppose God's program. They execute Satan's program. They disseminate false doctrine. In fact, Paul said in the latter days, some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. And then I have a sort of a quick overview of the New Age movement. You have a lot of not only the cults today, but the false religions, and I think all, I believe, instigated by Satan. And I think the New Age movement is sort of the umbrella under which all these can fit, or it's the mortar that holds together these false religions. All false doctrine is instigated by demons. Now, they can also possess, well, let me say this, they afflict human beings. Some cause insanity and muteness, deafness, immorality, blindness, personal injuries, physical defects. Now, my wife for many years worked and still works with the deaf, and she makes it clear in teaching sign language to hearing students or ministering to the deaf people. A very, very small percentage of deaf people today are that way because of the activities of demons. But I don't know, 1 out of 1,000, whatever. But we're told that in the New Testament, they had the power to inflict these physical injuries upon human beings. Not only that, but even more frightening, they can and often do possess human beings. And there are a number of demon-possessed instances in the Bible. The Old Testament, I suppose the key one would be Saul. He was often troubled by an evil spirit. And right after Samuel anointed David as Israel's second king, even as a shepherd boy, we read, but the Spirit of the Lord at that time departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. Apparently, he never really shook himself of that evil spirit. And then in the New Testament, you have 7 demon-possessed persons, and I list these here, but the 2 that I want to call your attention to is the maniac of Gadara and the demon-possessed boy. These are 2 of the most frightening cases and descriptions of demon possession in all the Bible. Well, they will not only can inflict great punishment, and have already, but during the Great Tribulation, they will inflict both destruction and death upon unsaved mankind during the Great Tribulation. All right, now, and I must add this, number 7, they are on occasion actually used by God to fulfill his divine purpose. And I have 5 instances of this under number 7. You need to look at this. And I think this is the fulfillment of the Old Testament Psalms that says that God worketh the wrath of men, in this case angels, fallen angels, to his own glory. Now, the destiny of unsaved angels to be judged, dear Christian, by you. In other words, you're not only going to have the opportunity to teach 1 billion or so holy angels but also the awesome responsibility of judging perhaps 1 billion or more of these fallen angels. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 6, verse 3, "Know ye not that we shall judge angels?" Now, I'm sure it's not the good guys. They need no judging. It's the fallen angels. So to be judged by Christ and his church and to be cast into the lake of fire forever. Now, the final page here, and you can read this, is from my good friend, Dr. Fred Dickinson, and his book, Angels. See, the name of the book, Angels, Evil and Elect. And he asked this question, a very penetrating question: is there any chance whatsoever for the salvation of a fallen angel? The answer is no. Well, I complete this lesson with a couple of stanzas from one of my favorite hymns, Martin Luther's great song, "A mighty fortress is our God, a bulwark never failing, our helper he amid the flood of mortal ills prevailing. For still our ancient foe does seek to work us woe, his craft and power are great, and armed with cruel hate. On earth is not his equal. Did we in our own strength confide our strength, striving would be losing, were not the right man on our side, the man of God's own choosing. Doth ask who that may be? Christ Jesus it is he, Lord Sabaoth his name, from age to age the same, and he must win the battle." Now listen to me read the third one here. "And though this world with devils filled should threaten to undo us, we will not fear, for God hath willed his truth to triumph through us. The prince of darkness grim, we tremble not for him, his rage we can endure, for lo, his doom is sure. One little word shall fell him," and that little word is Jesus.